Happy Pride Month, party people! It's a time to celebrate and fight for the continued existence of queer rights. But this video is going to be about the queer wrongs of Fate's recent edition of the character Lilith. You know, the character that every single fan clocked in on sight. And honestly, I'm a little bit disappointed by her. But we're gonna build up to that. So, much like the video I came up with when Dante was added to FGO, I feel the need to talk about the FGO Lilith and my Lilith. But it is going to be slightly different because these two aren't even the same Lilith, which is why I will be referring to them by their class rather than canonical and fanservant. Although, saying that, they sort of kind of are the same figure due to the messy nature of mythology and cultures yoinking ideas from each other. Also, in my opinion, fan translations aren't really the most reliable source in the Fate community before the official ones come out. Not that those are always better, but I am more likely to come out understanding things way better. Anyway, to get into the meat and potatoes, I think the most commonly understood version of Lilith is the one from Jewish mythology, the first wife of Adam, who was cast out of the garden because she didn't want to play ball, or whatever the hell was explained at the beginning of Hazbin Hotel. She is generally depicted as some form of succubus, and is commonly seen with a snake, such as my interpretation, and the versions of her seen in Shin Megami Tensei, which I actually had no idea even existed before I made my version, and I am shocked that no one told me in any of the comments. People usually love to point out when I accidentally copy something. Though, I suppose in this case, the depiction is so ubiquitous that it wasn't really worth noting. Regardless, in my version, it's less of her colluding with the snake in the garden, and more that she is actually the snake in the garden, sneaking around after being kicked out and seducing Eve with a different kind of forbidden fruit, if you get my meaning. Lesbian Lex. Actually, wait, I think I accidentally did something very problematic there with those implications. Cut the video, cut the video, cut it! Moving right along, this version of Lilith, the first human woman turned she-demon, actually finds her origins with the Mesopotamian demon of the same name. There, she is known as the Woman of Storms, responsible for the deaths of infants and mothers, and is a mother herself of many succubi, much like her Judeo-Christian counterpart. This is the version that the Berserker Lilith says she is, claiming only this interpretation and also claiming to have never even met Adam. Though, this is of course confusing because it's Fate, and also because the other version of Lilith does influence this character in small ways, being referenced in the description of her third skill, and there is Hebrew in the description of her noble phantasm. As far as what is said in the story, I only have Google Translate and equally trustworthy Fate fan translations, so I can't say for certain if FGO acknowledges that there is a different version of Lilith out there that is a separate entity altogether and just bleeds into this one a little bit, or if Lilith is in fact the same as the biblical Lilith and just doesn't recognize it for whatever reason, or if biblical Lilith isn't even real and humanity just influences her manifestation with it a bit, or if Berserker Lilith is straight up lying. There are so many options of which this can take, and I don't know which one it is yet, and I probably won't for another 2 years. But speaking of the Venn diagram of Lilith, another thing to add into the overlap is Toxic Yuri. Yes, after the story was unleashed onto the masses, one thing reigned above all else, and that was how much Lilith fucking hated God's favorite eggplant. I'm not going to go into much detail about it because, again, I don't trust the translations, and also because I want to be light on spoilers as far as the story itself is concerned. What I will say is that it seems to be that the reasoning for Lilith hating Mosh with every fiber of her being makes it feel like she'd hate normal Jeanne d'Arc just as well, which does kind of lessen the punch of the relationship, so hopefully the official translation will provide more nuance to it. Anyway, as mentioned at the start of this video, I do have mixed feelings on the direction FGO took Lilith. Not the Mosh hating part, I am here for the toxic Yuri. I baked that shit directly into my version of Lilith, and it's not even so much the character of Lilith herself from what I understand of it. And while I am happy that my pretender Lilith stands apart from Berserker Lilith, I do find that only going with the Mesopotamian version and just vaguely influencing her with the Jewish mythology is a missed opportunity. To toot my own horn for a bit, I do have to say that I believe that my version of Lilith, pretending to be Eve, is a more interesting concept. And yes, I know that sounds completely egotistical and biased, and honestly, it very much is, but I do also objectively think that there is more fun to be had with the idea of Lilith. That said, it is also 100% true that the idea does not fit into the story that FGO is telling. So, just because it is the more interesting concept, it doesn't make it the right concept, and I do think leaving Eve out of the character was the correct call for how they wanted to use Lilith in FGO. So I just want that to be very clear. I'm not saying that my version of Lilith is intrinsically better, it's just different. More interesting doesn't always mean better. But still, even without my exact concept, Berserker Lilith could have had more of the biblical Lilith in her, I think. Because that would add very interesting layers, especially with the dynamics with Metatron, Dante, and humanity as a whole. I'm sure those things are already interesting dynamics in the story as is, but would it not gain new shades of color and deeper meaning if she was actually the first human woman, molded from clay by God himself, while interacting with these connections? Even if Lilith's character as is amazing, that is still a huge missed opportunity. Though, at the end of the day, we still got toxic Yuri goodness that will probably be swirling around for a good long while, and an instantly beloved character by the fan base. Again, I do want to nail it home that I don't think Berserker Lilith is bad, or that I am just saying that it is worse compared to my version of Lilith. I am just saying that I prefer my version of Lilith, and that there is a missed opportunity with how they implemented the Berserker Lilith. That's all I'm saying. Though to get what I want, maybe someday I'll get around to writing that Holy Grail War story that features a majority of my fanservants, including Eve Lilith. But I make no promises, I've been struggling just to make videos. Anyway, go check out all of my fanservant videos. Let me know if you want me to remake the old ones, cause I will do that. I just want to make sure it's worth it. Also, tell me how you'd make a Lilith servant, that'd be interesting. Or you can just tell me what you think of Berserker Lilith and Pretender Lilith. I don't know, whatever you want to put in the comments section. This video's kinda short and weird, but you made it this far, thanks a million, genuinely. It means so much to me. And it'll mean so much more if I can catch you next time in the void. Later.